Good evening. So today, what's going on?
Want more? Bring the whole thing on the table.
So tonight today actually was the 8th of Tamuz. It's finished in half an hour. Today is actually the longest day in the year. 21st, yeah, 21st of June.
Oh, that's true.
From tomorrow it goes down. Whose birthday?
It was yesterday.
Mazel tov. Mazel tov until 120
Amen.
plus VAT.
Yeah.
I don't think you want plus.
I know, truth is, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Who knows? You never
I'll
know.
take it.
Maybe she'll be fresh and who knows what.
That would be a good start.
Okay. So basically tonight is we are.
Conversation tonight.
Yes, exactly so. A few years ago, I was in Stockholm tonight, and I arrived there at around, I think, 12:30 or maybe 1 o'clock, and the sun was still there. And it went down for half an hour, and an hour later it was up again.
No, don't live there.
Yeah, this is what it was. But anyway, the point is that tonight we have got the 9th of Tammuz, and it's very little known that the 9th of Tammuz has got a very important station in our calendar. It's got a very big significance in our calendar. Does anybody guess what it is? So
give us a clue what it's got to do with destruction of the temple.
Yeah, well, it must have. Look, the point is this, and this is, I think, the topic of tonight will be to evaluate and to get to know the fact that certain dates have got certain energies. Okay, so for example, you know that on Rosh Hashanah, on the 1st of Tishri, the energy is we've got royalty, we've got kingdom, so everything is very royal. We are trying to, to behave in a royal way to each other, and we are trying to forgive each other, and we are trying to be nice to each other, and so on and so forth. On Pesach, for example, everybody knows, and in Chassidus, they make a big thing out of it, that Nisan is the month of revelation, Chag HaGeula, yeah? Pesach was the time when the Jewish people were redeemed from Egypt, and everybody knows all these midrashim and gemaras which say that the future redemption will also happen in potentially in the month of Nisan, for the only reason because that month is a potential month for redemption. So every month and every date has got a specific energy which is in the atmosphere or in the cosmos, better said. Yeah, the cosmos is loaded with a certain energy, like the cosmos of the month of Nisan is loaded with the energy of redemption. So is the month of Tammuz or Adar or any other month they've got specific energies. And these energies, through history, through all the years of history, thousands of years, hundreds of years, they've always proven that in a specific month, that specific energy brought specific results. And I can tell you this: we know that we spoke about this in the past, that in the beginning, at the beginning of the month of Av, for example, from Rosh Chodesh Av, so we said that we have to minimize our simcha. Yeah? Our joy has to be minimized. And it's very well known, and Sfardim make a big thing out of this, that from the 1st of Av until the 9th of Av, they try to prevent anything which can be in any type of way dangerous. They're not going swimming, they're not going bungee jumping, they won't climb on mountains, they won't do, and literally we can see it in history, even in recent history, that most of the accidents happen in that type of time. And the reason for that,
it's scary.
It is scary. It is scary.
Yeah.
People don't believe it. And
I know, my mom's a big believer of it.
She is.
Right, and you don't even have to be a believer of it, because the fact is that you can open the newspaper and you will see things happen. Aeroplanes fall down and ships collide in the middle of the big, massive ocean, where there would be so much space and so much place to to go out of your way, and you just collide there. This is what it happens. This is what happens. People drown while they go swimming, and there are all the car accidents, road accidents. There are many things, and that is down.
Go to work. I feel very strongly I shouldn't go to work.
Really? So don't go. Stay
You
at
might,
home.
a pot might fall on your head. Full of talent.
Oh, don't. Oh, God.
So therefore, I think, and what we want to try and find is what's the energy of Tamuz? What is the energy of Tamuz? What's the energy of the 9th of Tamuz?
Well, from August, men reduce our happiness, but not yet.
No, so we are still increasing the happiness, but still there was something happened in history on the 9th of Tamuz.
Oh my God, let's think.
Yeah.
Where's the calendar, Miriam? I don't think
The
it's written
Jewish
now.
laws were breached.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
Well done.
Yes, but usually people always remember, and that's also true, that on Shivosov Tammuz, on the 17th of Tammuz, the walls were breached. But the fact
Where
is,
the tablets also.
that's on the 17th of Tammuz, and that we will come to next week. Everybody, I'm waiting till Chana is back, because that's when we have to
We've
speak
still
about
got
it.
another week.
Yeah, we've got another week till Shivosov Tammuz. And hello, welcome. So we are. We just only started. So
It's fine.
So the point is that let's make order here. Yeah, on the 9th we had 2 Batei Mikdash. Yeah, we had 2 temples. The first temple was built by King Solomon. The second temple was built by. Hey? No. Second temple was built by Cyrus, Koresh in the language of Koresh. Koresh?
No.
Never heard this name. Did you ever hear?
Cyrus redeems them.
It's not very good point that Lubavitch was a good education.
Yeah.
That's exactly the
Okay.
point.
So this, what happened? What happened was that Esther and Achashverosh,
Yes.
that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Those ones I know.
Okay, so Esther and Achashverosh, they were married, even though that he was non-Jewish and she was Jewish, but they had a relationship together. And that relationship brought forward a child, and that child was called Daryovesh.
No way.
Yes.
Yes. That I knew.
And Daryovesh was, of course, a Jewish boy because his mother was Jewish. And he grew up in a palace where there was a non-Jewish father, which was Achashverosh. And then Daryovesh was the first guy, royal person, which actually really gave benefits to the Jewish people. Besides what the Megillah tells us that Achashverosh gave over the house of Haman to Mordechai, that's written in the Megillah. But afterwards, when Jews started to rehabilitate and to start living again in relaxed, and after the Golos, when the 70 years came to an end, then the next person on the line to be good to the Jews was Daryovesh. And then the next king there was a person called Koresh. He was also related to the same house. And Koresh actually took a lot of money and gave to Ezra and Nehemiah. Ezra and Nehemiah were the last prophets of the Jewish people. He gave the money to Ezra and Nehemiah, and he gave them an order to go up to Eretz Yisrael and to rebuild the temple. The problem was that by that time in Israel there was already a settlement of Jewish people which resettled there eventually, and they very much opposed the idea to rebuild the temple. Can you imagine this? The Jews, because they were happy with the way it was, and they didn't want to
rock the boat.
Yeah, exactly. That's a nice expression. They didn't want to rock the boat. They were happy the way it was. Of course, the Gemara tells us that there was a very deep reason behind this. I'll say in a second. But the fact was that it took 19 years until this blockage was lifted. Yeah? So these Jews fought against the idea for 19 years. And 19 years later, they succeeded, Ezra and Nehemiah, and they were already old people at that time.
Koresh built it.
Koresh took it. It was Koresh's money. It was Koresh, and Ezra and Nehemiah were the emissaries to go and do the work, right?
Oh, they did.
Okay. So they
And how is he related to Esther and Mordecai?
so Koresh,
Yeah.
so because Koresh was also a son of that
Is he
royal family,
grandson or
grandson,
daughter? Oh,
grandson, yeah.
yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so this one. So now, 19 years later, they were able to start building again. And the next thing which they did, they were repairing the wall, which was breached 89 years earlier by Nebuchadnezzar. Yes.
Rewind. One second.
Okay, again.
So they went into Israel.
They went into
And then
Israel.
you said people were arguing to build the Beis
Not
Hamikdash.
build.
Well,
Not.
There were
Not.
the people which were already settled in
Yeah.
Israel. They did not want the rebuild of the
correct. They
temple.
were arguing to build it. Yeah.
They were arguing not to build it.
Not build it.
Okay.
They were
anyhow.
against building it.
Yeah.
Yeah? And then 19 years later, they managed to, to push them aside. Ezra and Nehemiah
And say, let's build it.
and let's build it, and they started building it.
Okay.
So the first thing which they did is they re-established the wall around Jerusalem, which was, why did they have to rebuild it? Because 89 years earlier, Nebuchadnezzar breached those walls, and that happened on the 9th of Tamuz. That the breach of the wall of the first temple, of the first Jerusalem, happened on the 9th of Tammuz. So, yeah, you don't follow me again. So let's start it from the other side. Let's do it this way. Let's start it. You didn't clear this for me.
No, I didn't. You're right. I haven't even got
Look at
my
this.
answer.
Let's do it this way.
Okay. Yeah, I need visual.
Right, you're going to board.
Yeah.
Why?
I really like to
You
spin.
never board's not going to spit the whole time, right?
Yeah, I know. He's meant to be getting it somehow.
Look, in year, that's like this.
So the wall was breached years ago.
The years was
Just the wall around Jerusalem, but the
Mind you,
temple
that's
had
what
been
you
gone
put
for.
exactly no.
Already gone.
No. In the 9th of Tammuz,
The walls
That is
were
what we're
breached.
trying to work out. What
9th of Tammuz, the walls were breached. The walls of the first temple.
Yeah.
Yeah, walls.
broken mirror.
First temple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's one.
That's the first temple is on the 9th of Tammuz.
No, it's okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. My daughter says I don't know how to spell, but she's probably right.
None of us know how to spell,
Okay.
so can't tell the difference.
C-E-M-E-L-E.
That's
Now,
fine.
then the next thing which happened after that was 70 years later.
No,
Yes.
the temple was destroyed 3 weeks later.
No, 1 month
No.
later.
What
1 month
arrow?
later, 9th of, the temple itself is destroyed.
Right.
Okay? Temple
Same
destroyed.
Wasn't there Mahloket? Whether it was 9th or 17th?
Destroyed.
No,
Exile.
17th of Tammuz is the second, basically.
That was a Mahloket, whether it was 9th or 7th, because they were confused about the date.
Yeah, I didn't realize how else.
The date of the, but it was actually 17, not the 9th.
Which one?
Just small and not.
I'm
No,
not sure about
the
that.
others.
What I nicht drauf. Okay, so the
Then the
9th.
exile.
Okay, again, the 9th of Tammuz, the walls of Jerusalem breached, and Nebuchadnezzar is the bad boy. He comes in, and a month later, the 9th of Av, he's destroying the temple.
Correct.
Okay?
Okay.
Now, he takes all the Jews, most of the Jews, not all of them, he takes most of the Jews into exile to Babylonia, to Babel.
That's where the song comes from.
Yeah? On the rivers of
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and this is actually a capital in Tehillim. It's
Yeah.
Al Nahar es Bovel, Shom Yoshavnu, V'Gam Besochenu es Zion. It must be 130,
We
yeah.
say it also in the before
Yeah,
bedtime.
Okay.
He said that, he said that.
One,
He said it's 130,
130 and he said 7.
37.
137 is just before Ashrei and so on.
There's also you say
So
9 days.
Then,
3 weeks, 9
after
days,
the
you say
9th of
inventory
Av,
before
so
bedtime.
we've got 70 years exile.
Yeah.
Yes, 70 years of exile in Babel.
Met een E am Ende.
Oh, here?
Ja.
Okay. Okay, 70 years of exile in Babel. Then the story of Purim happens.
You need, because you're holding it upwards so the ink goes down.
So I'll have to do it like this.
Maybe. It might work actually.
Yeah, Purim.
What's
And
the
then 19 years later, we
Okay.
have got the wall, the wall is repaired. Okay.
So how can he already be a grandson if it's 19 years later?
Because he probably wasn't born. The relationship between Esther and Ahasuerus happened somewhere here in this
No
area
way.
here. Yeah.
Can you see that? When? Right-handed.
At the end
Yes,
of the 70
Of
years.
exile of Babel.
Babel,
Before
yes.
Purim actual story, they had already started their relations.
Yes, of course. What do you mean? Yeah, of course,
So
absolutely.
how the
It's over
story of
9
Purim in
years.
general?
No, the
Yes.
Megillah story, the
Yeah.
Megillah story stretches over a long time. It doesn't stretch only
Not like
How long
one
is that?
day or
About
one
9
week.
years.
9 years.
About
Yeah.
9 years.
What did you think?
So still, he's going to be 28. A
Um,
son, not a grandson.
No, hang on a second. He will be. We can work this out exactly, but it is a grandson. You can
Okay.
take, you can take it for granted. We'll work it out. Okay, it is a grandson. Okay, so he takes the money. Ezra and Nehemiah take the money, go to Eretz Yisrael, and after this pause of 19 years, they start building. Okay. Now, when they start building, the first thing which they rebuild is that wall. Okay, and that's the wall which 400 years later, 420 years later, will be breached again, and it will be breached on the 17th of Tammuz.
Everything in Tamuz.
Everything in Tammuz. So that's why I'm pointing it out, because Tammuz seems to have a kind of an energy which is problematic. No, that's Av. That's a different story.
That's the next
It's
one.
the month later. Tammuz is the one before. Right? Okay, so we have got the 9th of Av, the 9th of Tammuz, where the golden calf is on the 17th of Tammuz. Okay. So we've got the golden calf on the 17th of Tammuz. We've got the breaking of the first tablets on the 17th of Tammuz, but we've got the breach of the first wall on the 9th of Tammuz. And in Megillah Tanis, I mentioned that already before, that there's a Megillah which is called Megillah Ta'anit, and that is a Megillah which records all the days which you are not allowed to fast, even though it's called Megillah Ta'anit, but it talks about the days. Ta'anit means a fast. Tanis.
Oh,
Yeah.
and it's telling us when we're not allowed.
We are not allowed to fast. So one of the dates which is recorded is the 9th of Tammuz. And the reason for that is because obviously for 70 years it was a reason to fast. But when the Jews were redeemed of that exile of Babel, it was a reason to celebrate. So that fast turned into a celebration, and it stayed a celebration. It was actually a yontif, which was also the melocha. You were not allowed to work, like Pesach, Sukkot, Suas, like any other yontif.
Yeah.
Yes, so. But because on the 17th of Tammuz, the walls were again breached, so they turned it back again, and they said, you know what, we will, and that's probably your confusion here. They said that they are not going to introduce two fasts, one on the 9th and one on the 17th. We are doing one for both, which is the 17th of Tammuz. This is how it works. So 17th of Tammuz, actually we should have fasted tomorrow, if it would have been, Yeah, no, not in Tammuz.
Then we would have had 3.
Today.
No, not today, tomorrow.
No,
It's on
today's the 9th of Tammuz.
tonight. No, tonight. Yeah.
No, so when Shabbat comes in, fast will be over.
It would be over. So we've got only one fast in our whole calendar, which this is possible, and that is Asoro B'Teves, which is actually.
This year.
It was last year. No? Previous year, okay.
Oh.
So, but Asoro B'Teves has got very much connection to this system. And who can tell me what?
Quite a strict fast.
How is Asoro B'Teves connected to?
What's Asoro B'Teves?
Asoro B'Teves is the 10th of Teves, and that was exactly half a year ago, and I already told you half of the answer.
It's before Purim. It's 2 months before Purim.
No, that's Tan's Esther.
No, it's 2 months.
2 months, yeah. I thought you said 2 nights.
No.
Yeah. No, so the thing is this: the year is a circle, right? the year is always going to be a circle.
Yeah.
Okay,
And each year everything gets renewed.
and each year everything gets renewed, so we are going up one step every year. It's like a spiral. Okay, now in as I mentioned a few weeks ago, there are 2 new years in the year. There's one new year. Yeah, I said 4 exactly. Very good, amazing. We have got 2 and 2 sub new years. Okay, so we have got 4 new years, but there are 2 main new years. There's one new year which is Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, let's write it like this: Rosh Hashanah. And then we've got another one which is also Rosh Hashanah, but it's the Rosh Hashanah. Exactly, it's the Rosh Hashanah of Nisan. Okay. The difference between those 2 is that this one is this is more for the not the for the physical things. Okay, and this is more for the spiritual stuff. Rosh Hashanah of Nisan is a Rosh Hashanah. Why is it called a Rosh Hashanah? Because it's the biblical Rosh Hashanah. Anytime when the Torah gives us a date, the date will not be, the first month is not going to be here, but the first month is going to be here. And I'm now going to make order with this confusion, because listen carefully. You know why? Because on the first of Nisan, HaKadosh Baruch Hu passed on the concept of how to make a calendar to the Jewish people. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows Moshe Rabbeinu, look up there, there's a moon. When the moon looks like this is when the first day of your month will be. So the concept of doing a Rosh Chodesh is being born on the first of Nisan. And the Jewish people, they are compared to the moon because they get an opportunity to renew themselves in the same way as the moon is renewing himself. And so that is a spiritual concept. This is not a physical thing. So therefore, the spiritual Rosh Hashanah is always on the first of Nisan. A bit clearer?
Yeah.
No, you can say no. I'll repeat.
I don't understand why that's the spiritual one.
I
Because Rosh
understand.
Hashanah is very spiritual.
Yeah.
It's not physical.
Yeah, because that's how
Jewish people
that's how they
are-
boxed it into you in
Yeah,
school.
probably. You're right.
But
I agree with you. I mean, I understand, but why couldn't Hashem tell him
I remember why.
I'm just saying, why couldn't Hashem just say to him
Oh.
on Rosh Hashanah?
why
do
is
we have
not
to do it 6
everything
months
together?
later? Yeah,
Oh, that's
make
a very.
life easier.
This is a fair question, and
make it so much easier.
there's a very simple answer to this.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what it is, because we need a balance. Imagine if everything would have been here,
Wonderful.
then the whole weight would have been up here.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is not what we
And then
want.
slowly we'll do
Yeah, and then we will all go down under until
Yeah.
the end of the year. Yeah. So we have got.
yeah,
So
but
we,
we have every
Just in
Rosh
time
Hashanah
to go
to
back
start
up
again.
again.
Exactly.
so the point is that we have. This is the beauty of the Jewish calendar, that we always, every month, we find something else which gives us a renewal, which gives us new power, which infuses in us new spirituality, new energy. And the 2 main poles for this is on the first of Tishrei and the first of Nisan. Now, if we accept this, then then we can see. Then we can see. Do you have a ruler here? No?
Okay, now you're
Okay, don't
pushing
worry
it.
What
about
else do you want?
it. I just want a ruler. That's all I want. Okay. So the only.
Would you like some?
Right, you know what?
Would you like some Tipex as well?
Oh, you can use it. I don't
No,
know.
it's fine. It's okay. So basically, if this is Nisan and this is Tishrei, then where is Tavis and where is Tamuz?
Teves is
Thomas is
the
on the left,
Here?
just before, yeah.
Okay, if we go clockwise, then Tamuz will be
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
plus minus here, right?
and Teves
And where is Tavis
is
going to be?
just after or
There.
just before. No.
Yeah, just, yeah,
Yeah, right
parallel,
there.
Exactly
parallel,
opposite,
parallel,
exactly. Yeah. So it's exactly
I meant up, yeah.
opposite. Okay, so this is going to be the 10th of Tevet,
Two-ish folks.
and this is going to be the 9th of Tammuz. Okay, it's no, not at all. It's going to be very easy. That's why I'm writing it up here. Yeah, we've got the 10th of Tavis, we've got the 10th of Tavis, and the 9th of Tammuz. So it's 1 day off the line, and there's a good reason for that. This is confusing. Okay, no. But actually, what it is, we've got exactly the balance. So the energy, this day and that day are directly linked. Yeah, 9th of Tamuz is directly linked to the 10th of Tavis. And what is it? So the link is this.
I've been on TVs.
What happened on the 10th of Tavis?
Siege started.
Exactly. That's when the siege started. So I don't know if you remember. We spoke about this in length.
Nice one.
The siege. What happened was this: Nebuchadnezzar came from Babel
Yeah.
2.5 years earlier than the 10th of Tavis. So which date was it? 2.5 years earlier.
Then Tamuz.
On the 9th of Tammuz.
Obviously.
So this is there's a machloket about this. This is a machloket. So either 1.5 or 2.5 years before, and he started with the siege. Siege meaning that he was standing around the wall and waiting for an opportunity to breach it.
For 2.5 years.
For 2.5 or for 1.5. There are two opinions about this, and he didn't manage. Okay, and why didn't he manage? Because in Shamayim, we have the system. Everything here is a reflection of what happens in heaven. Okay, and in heaven, the balance between the good forces and the bad forces were absolutely balanced. So there was no way that he can breach the walls because everything was on a balance. It needed one person to do something wrong, and it would succeed. And that happened on the 9th of Tammuz. Okay, so actually he started the siege on the 10th of Tevet, and it took him 2.5 years or 1.5 years in order to breach it, because this is when the balance fell into the wrong direction. And Chassam Sofer says something extremely shocking, because what he says, what was it actually which acts brought along the balance to go on the negative side? Does anybody know that?
Each other.
Which one? What did you say, else?
The Jews not treating each other with respect.
Okay, so that was on the second temple. This was the second temple. But in the first temple, what was the main problem in the first temple? Which one? Intermarriage? No. This was also a problem, but that was...
Not having idol worship?
No, that's the second thing. Idol worship was one of the things. But what tipped the scale? What tipped the scale? No, this was definitely one of the things.
Not believing in God.
No. Well, how? What did they do and in showing that they don't have a
They
mona?
went against God by...
One of the things was not keeping Shemitah.
Really?
Yes.
How random.
They were,
yes.
Yes, they didn't keep Shemitah. Out of,
Like,
plus another
Is
thing.
that sacrifice?
Eh?
Is that the sacrifice?
No, Shemitah is that every 7th year you're not allowed to work in the fields.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have to leave the fields alone. You can't work.
Sabbatical.
Sabbatical every 7 years. There were 49 Shmittahs which they didn't keep, actually, and this is quite amazing because that's almost the whole period of the first temple. If you think about this, 49 times they didn't keep the Shemitah.
49 days.
Yes.
49 times.
No, yeah, well, that's also true. Yeah, but that's not connected to. Eh? What?
It doesn't add up.
What doesn't add up? Which bit?
It happens every 7 years.
49
Yes. Every 7 times 7 times they didn't keep Shemitah. What's the
You
problem?
get 49.
Yeah, because it's 7 times 7.
Come on, wasn't it?
Just like the 49 days from Pesach.
No, Shemitah is every 7 years, right?
So
Yes.
they didn't do it every 49. They didn't do it 49 times. They did
It's
it
every
for
7 years. They didn't do it 49
Yes.
times.
no, not
No,
49
7 times.
For
7
79
times.
years. 7
7
times.
times.
Yeah, I
49
understood. I
years.
was
Okay, sorry about that.
I was
So this was one of the things.
She's a mathematician.
And the other thing, which is also very much related to the same concept, was that they didn't keep Shabbos properly. They didn't keep Shabbos properly, and
Was that the tipping of the scales?
And this was the tipping of the scale. This is what the Chassam Sofer says, and the Chassam Sofer says that's why the walls were breached, and this is why the Gemara says that if the Jews would keep 2 Shabbosos, then Mashiach would come and the Geula Shlema would be here. If all the Jews would keep 2 Shabbosos in a go,
Don't say
then
that.
why do you say
You
that?
know what? That's why they do Shabbat UK.
Yeah.
You got to
So
start somewhere.
they should do two
Exactly.
Shabbat, UK Shabbat, one after.
If you would, if
Yeah.
all the Jews in the
It's-
world would keep two Shabbatot in one go, then the
That's
Geula
why they say
Shlema would
when
be here.
Yom Kippur lands on Shabbos, you have two. You get all the Jews.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah,
then
There
you've
you
got
go.
the
Probably.
Jews
Shabbos
who
over
don't
Shabbos.
believe
Yeah.
they're
You
Jews.
got to.
Except those Jews which don't know that they are Jews and how to
Yeah.
conduct
That
them.
is not
the
possible.
problem.
And the
there's
Jews
people-
that don't do anything.
There are Jews that know that they're Jews and don't.
Yeah.
That's right. So
So
that's,
are those included as well?
Yeah.
everybody's
Yeah.
included.
So
And this is why,
never going to happen.
and this is why, no, it is going to happen.
Leela.
Because you are going to make sure that people come to our Friday night meals and then they will know how to deal with it. And, you know, this is how it's going to be.
Saturdays and everything.
And Saturday, everything.
No
The
transportation.
whole thing, everything a complete, it has to be a complete Shabbos, 24 and a half hours.
Yeah.
If they would do it twice, then this is what would happen.
Just go to sleep from sundown to sundown and go to sleep.
This
Are they
is,
all?
pardon?
But I thought it's just one Shabbat.
No, it's
No,
two
it was
Shabbatot.
That's why they do Shabbat UK, because everyone needs to keep one Shabbat.
Or was it in the biblical times? there
Everyone
was two
drives to
Shabbats?
Shabbat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's true.
No. This hasn't got anything to do with this. This is, listen, the point of keeping Shabbat is, because if somebody,
they're not going to keep it.
if somebody keeps Shabbat properly, then what are we literally doing? What's the idea of keeping Shabbat? The idea of keeping Shabbat is that we are showing our emunah.
Yeah.
We are showing that we,
Celebrating the day of rest.
yeah, exactly. Well, we are testifying that the Baruch Hu created the world in 6 days and that He Himself stopped
Rested.
doing it and rested on the seventh day. And if we keep this, and then not only do we testify it, but we are also sticking to our contract with the Baruch Hu, because Shabbat is considered to be an ois, which means a sign, and the sign, an ot. Yeah, an ot. If we have got the sign which we are showing to our Kodesh Baruch Hu, that we are His people, is through doing what He also did.
And you sanctified it with the Jewish people.
Exactly.
Oh, I love Shabbat.
Yeah,
With
it's-
and for the Jewish.
Beini uvein bnei Yisrael, ois hi le'olam. Between me and my Jewish children, it is a sign for forever.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And if we are not keeping it, then we are actually saying to Hashem, we don't care about you. You know, it's your thing. You made it, and well, why is it my fault that you made it? But the idea is that He made it because He wants to show us, and He wants to be connected to us, and He wants us to connect to Him. And therefore, so these are the two main points. We have got Shmitta, which is also basically the same idea. By not working in the fields in the 7th year, we are showing that we rely on the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Hashem will give us enough sustenance, no matter if we work in the field. If we do not work in the field, it doesn't make a difference. We are always going to have enough food. We are always going to have enough rain. Everything will work. Everything will be there. And if we do work, then we are, so to say, saying, you know what, we need to take control. We don't rely only on Hashem Himself. And that's the problem. By doing these two things, the Jewish people showed that they are in control themselves. If they are in control themselves, then the walls can be breached because they can't control
Just
everything.
In Egypt as well.
What was in Egypt?
With the 10 plagues, the leaving. the
Okay, well, this is the same. It's the same idea. If we rely on Hashem, then Hashem, if we give over, you know, that He should use His power, He should control, then we are in much better hands than if we think that we can do it ourselves. So this is the connection between the 10th of Tevet and the 9th of Tammuz. And therefore, now we have to understand, how does it, did you follow me?
Yeah,
Oh,
which one was it?
But,
Oh, no.
Which one was what?
You know,
Here, the 10th of Tevet.
you know when you said they didn't keep Shemitah and they didn't keep Shabbat.
Yes.
When was that? The 9th of Tammuz or 10th of Teves?
Okay, so the siege started here,
Okay.
all right?
10th of Tevet.
And on the 9th of Tammuz,
Oh, a year and a half.
a year and a half or 2.5 years later, the whole thing fell, okay?
Because they didn't.
Plus, they would have had the chance within, between here and here,
Yeah.
they would have had a chance to do tshuva still. And there was
to
a
keep 2 Shabbats.
to keep 2 Shabbats and to start, you know, committing to Shemitah and doing everything else. but they failed, and that's why they were.
1 month.
That was 1 month. There would have been enough opportunity within 1 month to do what has to be done in order to return to Hashem and in order to convince Hashem not to let it happen. But they failed, and there was a prophet around which was called Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu Novi. He was the man who tried to convince the people to do the right thing, and he failed. Nobody wanted to listen to him. There were a lot of false prophets sprouting up all over the place and saying contradicting prophecies which were not even true, because Hashem never gave them any other prophecies to relate. And nobody, and eventually Yirmiyahu himself was taken down in chains to Babylonia. And that's where the Al Neharot Bavel, Sham Yashavnu Vegam Bachidnu, that's how it came into being, this song, because together with the Jewish people which were pulled down in chains, they were together singing this song when they went down to Babylonia. It's a very sad song, but it's, at the end of the day, it won on the Eurovision.
Something didn't allow them to sing. They didn't allow them to sing that song until they reached
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. So basically, the point was, so now we have to understand, there's one thing which we are still missing, and we have to know, where does this negative energy start coming into the cosmos in the first place?
The destruction of the tabernacle, or the golden calf.
No, but that's on the 17th of Tamuz.
It was created by the.
That's on the 17th.
Still in Tamuz.
Huh?
That's Tamuz. The whole month of Tamuz is evil stuff, you said.
It's
not evil stuff.
It's the
because I'll show you next week that it's
negative stuff.
You're jumping.
Yeah. No.
Negative
It's the
stuff.
Yetzirah.
It is the Yetzirah, but
What's causing the
look,
Yetzirah to come out
again, I
sometimes.
told you at the very beginning of this talk that every month has got a specific energy in its cosmos, right?
Right.
We spoke about Nissan having Geula, we spoke about Adar having the story, the revelation of Purim. Sivan has got of course, because the Torah is being given. So there is a lot of spirituality, but in a negative. Also, yeah, but be careful, because I'll tell you something. Now watch this, because in Sivan, you know what Hashem does in Sivan? Hashem gives you the Torah without you having to work for it. Do you realize that?
Yeah, that's a good thing.
I'm sure.
It is what happens.
We shall do, then. We shall do, then you'll understand.
Exactly. No, but the opposite of this happens on Purim. Because on Purim, they then from themselves come and say, we will do what we have to do. Yeah, Kimu v'kiblu, this is on Purim. So this is going to be the talk of next week. So come back next week.
That happened.
But only if Chani is here. Huh?
Shavuot's time it happened too.
No, but Shua's time it was different. Shua's, HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them, you have to take it, and otherwise I'm going to kill
You're not
you
saying
all.
Nasa. What?
Yes, there was the Kofor Aleim Har Kegigis. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took the mountain on top of them, and he said, if Im tikablu mutter, ve'im lav, zuti poastem.
So you said we'll do as you say.
That's what they also said.
Yeah.
So that's what we are going to make. This is going to be worked out next week.
Can I ask a question about
Yeah.
Shavuos? If one of the concepts is we do the late learning because we miscounted an extra day.
No, that's not the reason.
I was told that
Because we overslept on that night. That's why we are doing we're learning it now.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
We overslept in that.
They went to sleep.
Everybody was ready. 3 days they were preparing themselves to receive the Torah. And when it came the last night when they went to sleep, they overslept in the morning instead of getting up on time to be there to receive the Torah. And that was the reason. That's the reason why we are staying up. But that's not.
It sounds comical.
It is. Who says that comical is bad?
we're not comics.
You're taking life too serious. That's the problem.
No, I'm saying it sounds comical because they're preparing for 3 days and yet
They were
every single Jew
exhausted.
out of all of these thousands oversleeps and can't wake up.
Yeah,
others.
because they're exhausted.
Staying up.
Because this is the Yetzirah. This is exactly what he does.
Get all the Jews to keep Shabbos, but you get them all to
Sleep in. Yeah, exactly.
Very good point. But let's not divert from our main thing. I want to know Why is it that Tamuz has got this energy, specifically the 9th or the 10th of Tamuz, have got this energy of getting it so far that can happen on the 9th of Tammuz, that the world will be breached? Why is that possible? And this has got to do with this week's parsha, funny enough.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
We got there.
Oh, yeah. What have we got in this week's parsha? Who knows what the main tragedy, so to say, tragedy is of this parsha?
Miriam dies, so
Yes.
the
Aaron
water
dies.
stops.
Yes.
Aaron dies due
More
to
complaints.
Moshe hitting the rock.
Okay.
He's trying to go on to speak to the rock that looks like Miriam.
Miriam's rock.
Miriam's rock, but
Okay, so let's do this. I'll give you a very good, Els. You did your homework, I can see. So basically, the point is this: what happened in history was so they arrived at the border, almost at the border of Eretz Yisrael, and Miriam died. Why Miriam died and she's not able to go into Israel is a topic for a complete different time, because I don't even want to start opening this topic up. The fact is that she died. And the Jews are out of water. When Miriam is not here, there's no water. Why is there no water? Because the well, the miraculous well, which traveled with the Jews for 40 years, was only there in the merit of Miriam. Miriam is now dead, so there's no water. The next thing is the Jews come and complain to Moshe Rabbeinu and to Aaron and say, we don't have water. Give us water. And Hashem says to Moshe, take your staff and go to the rock and speak to the rock, and the rock will give water. Moshe Rabbeinu goes to the rock, and he turns to the Jews. And here there are psukim missing. We need the medrash in order to fill up the narrative completely, because in the pasuk we don't have all this information. The medrash tells us that Moshe and Aaron went to the rock, and they were looking for the rock which provided them with water during Miriam's lifetime. Because the water which came along in the merit of Miriam came from a rock. It didn't come from her pocket or from a suitcase. It came from a rock, right? Now Miriam, that rock, this rock disappears into a lot of rocks which are there in that kind of area which they are. And Moshe and Aaron go to that mountain, and they try to speak to a specific rock, and they can't find it. They don't know where it is. So they turn around to the Jews and they say, we don't know what to do. And the Jews says, do you really think that there will be a rock here which can give water? So Moshe Rabbeinu says speaks back to them and says, what do you think, you rebellious people? Hashem sent me here for nothing? Hashem didn't send me here for nothing. And he takes his staff and he hits once the rock. And when he hits him once, a few drips of water come out. And then the Jews say, we need more, we need more, we need more. And what does he do? He hits it again. And once he hits it again, a lot of water comes out. And now Hashem turns to Moshe and Aaron and says, because you, Moshe, because you didn't listen and you didn't do what I told you to do, and you hit instead of talking. If you would have spoken to the rock, then this would have been a massive Kiddush Hashem, because the Jews would have sawn.
There is only Jews there, so how's that Kiddush?
No, because even for the Jews it's a Kiddush Hashem. The Jews would have seen that if you can, that only by talking to a rock you can bring out water, because the rock listens to the order which HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him to do. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells the rock to give water, then he gives water.
So then why wasn't water coming out?
One second.
Yeah.
Well, so that's
told which rock to go to.
Oh
exactly,
my God,
because
that's
it-
so mean. That's
then-
really not nice.
because
The rock that looks
That's
like
gone to every rock.
Miriam.
okay, well,
Hello, are you the right rock? Okay, next. Hello? Is it you?
Next year they'll still be.
Do you know how many rocks there must have been there?
That's what I'm saying.
and
I'm
to
just saying.
Aaron they
Just
turned,
shout.
and to Aaron HaKadosh Baruch Hu turned and said, because you didn't prevent Moshe Rabbeinu to hit the rock, therefore you are also guilty the
That's
same as
really
him,
mean.
and therefore you're not coming into Eretz
Don't
Yisrael.
like that.
To get more depth about this and to clear away everything which you don't like, Nachama, come on Shabbos afternoon at 7, and then you'll hear more about this.
Oh,
Okay? So this is what we have to do here. Anybody who is around, please come, and then you will
shame
hear.
I'm so far away.
Maybe I'll come to Shanley and do it there. So, or if you want, you can stay with us over Shabbos.
Oh, there you go. No excuse now, Mum.
You're getting yourself into
No,
it.
the excuse is that Shane too nice to leave. They leave you there.
Good enough excuse.
They leave you
So listen to this.
Let's all move to Shenley.
So
Hello?
this
Hello?
No,
No, not happening.
this is the story. This is the story of this week's parsha. Now, where does all this happen?
37 years.
Not
no,
when. Where?
Where?
What's the geographical location where this happens? The Torah tells us this.
Oh God.
Where?
Why?
Yeah, but what's the
Jordan.
place called?
The sea.
No,
Jordan.
it's not called sea, and it's not called Jordan. What's
in
the place?
desert of
It's called the desert
Let
of
me check
sin.
Google
Sin,
Maps.
yes.
Yes, and
so
what's
half there.
yes,
Well
and
done,
what's the
Miriam,
place
desert.
called? What's the place itself called? Who knows that?
Or the village.
Yeah, what's this place has got a specific name. I'm going to read it out for you.
Was it still after? Were they still in the same place where they received the?
There?
A desert is a desert.
No, Sarah's difference.
No, they were long gone. This is 40 years later.
Can you? Are they not in Israel yet?
Because the
It
thing
takes a
with,
long time
Oh,
to
they
walk
had to
across
be
the
there for 40
desert.
Yeah, of
years because they
course.
had sinned. No.
From last week's
Look
parsha
at this.
to tomorrow's parsha, it jumps 39
Yeah,
or so years.
38 and a half years. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Look at this. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe leimoy. No, this is the wrong one. Here. Vayovayu bnei Yisrael, all the Jewish people, Kolo Edo, Midbar Tzin, they came into the desert of Tzin. When was this? Vachodesh Horishon, in the first months. Vayeshev ha'om bekodesh, and the people dwelt in a place which was called Kodesh. Miriam, yeah, they're in the Midbar Tzin, and the place is called Kodesh. But Thomas saw Miriam, and Miriam died there, passed away there, but Tikova Shom, and she was buried there on the spot. The Rashi brings from
They didn't even take it to.
Eretz Yisrael, no. Rashi, none of the three siblings were buried in Israel.
That's so sad.
So,
So much.
and this has got
Yeah.
it's got a reason for
We've got
there's
them all the
a
way
reason
there.
Yeah, there's
behind
always
that.
a reason.
There's a reason
We've got
behind
them
this.
all the way to the gate.
Nobody knows where
Yes.
they're buried.
At least that's an easy death.
No, Aaron and Miriam
Yeah.
we do know, but only Moses we don't know. Moshe Rabbeinu we don't know. We know where it is, but it's confusing. Yeah, the Gemara says if we are down the mountain, we think he's up there, and when we go up the
Really?
mountain, we
Yeah.
think he's down there.
Romans tried.
Yeah, it's
So
the
it's
Mishnah in
halfway.
August. Huh?
The Romans
When they
tried.
were
Yes.
up, they were up, and when they were down, they were down.
Exactly.
When you're only halfway up,
They
you
were
need
either
it up,
up
not
or down.
down.
So
Yeah,
Rashi
exactly.
says, when did Miriam die? What was the date of Miriam's death?
39 years after leaving the.
On the 10th of Nisan.
Ah,
Yes, Miriam passed away on the 10th of Nisan. Miriam passes away on the 10th of Nisan. And at the same time, a day later, or on the same day, the Jews come and complain. Right? On the
Right.
10th of Nisan, Jews come and complain. Moshe Rabbeinu hits the rock on the 10th of Nisan. And the whole thing happens on the 10th of Nisan. So Moshe Rabbeinu seems to be, is already carrying this negative energy, yes, which we have got
Because Miriam just died.
from the 10th of Nisan
from the
to
10th of Nisan, yes.
But they kept complaining for
So this is
how
when
many years?
the negative energy starts, but it starts even earlier than that. You know when it starts?
Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
Look at this.
Tishrei.
Nah,
No, I'm trying to
No.
read what that month says.
Tavis,
Tamuz.
Tavis, Tammuz.
Tamuz.
This is-
Tamuz.
So the posuk in Parshas Lech Lecha, yeah, the Parshas
Pray
Lech
for
Lecha
yourself.
says
so
something
confused with
amazing.
the month.
Look at this. Look what it says here. Does anybody remember Parshas Lech Lecha? Avram is called at that point. He's not
Yeah.
called Avraham yet. But Baruch Hu tells Avram, please leave your land, your father's land, go where I'll tell you to go. And he goes. And he goes and he goes and he goes. This is one of his first tests. Then, eventually, during his journey, there is a war happening, and there are 4 kings which are having a war against other kings. Yeah,
Five giants.
do you remember this?
No.
There are giants. The giants there were also giants involved here. And in this week's parsha, there are also giants involved. But
Always
let's leave the giants
continue,
on the
yeah.
side. Okay, so the Torah tells us there, one of the psukim, it says here, Vayetze melech. One second. Yes. Vayetze melech zdoim likrosoi, the king of Sdom came out, after he finished the war with Kedorlaomer, which was one of the kings. And where did he go? Where did he meet him? El Emek Shove. El Emek Shove, who Emek Hamelech. This is the place which a place which is called Emek Shove. Now they carry on walking. Let me find the right posuk.
Wasn't one of them called Oik while they're making it up?
No, there is Oik Melech HaBoshan.
Yeah.
Oik Melech HaBoshan.
But it's not this one.
Yeah, it's with the 4 lines that he's talking about.
The king of the king of.
Here, this is it. Vayeshuvu, and they returned. Vayevayu, and they came. El Ein Mishpat, to a place which is called Ein Mishpat. He Kodesh, that is Kodesh. Vayaku is called they Amalekah, and they killed all the Amalekites, and also the Amori, and they stayed in Chatzotzo and Tomah. So they came to a place. They came to. I'll read it in English. They returned and came to Ein Mishpat, which is now Kodesh, and they smote the entire area, which was later to be inhabited by the Amalekites. Yeah. So they came to a place which is called Ein Kodesh. What does Ein Kodesh? Ein Mishpat. What does Ein Mishpat mean?
No judgment.
No, Ein with an ayin.
I.
Ayin is an eye. Why is an eye called an ayin? Why is an eye called in Hebrew an ayin?
You judge by what you see.
Gematria?
No, it's not gematria. This is much better than that.
Aim.
The Maharal says that ayin also means a well. That's true, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
An ayin is in the Torah itself. We sometimes see that the Torah tells us that someone met somebody at an ayin. Yeah, an ayin is a well.
Yeah.
Okay, the eye. Exactly.
Yeah,
The eye is the well of your inside. If you want to know if somebody is happy or upset, you look in his eyes, and you know what you exactly.
He's agreeing to everything you're saying, and then you go, not.
She hears it all the time. That's why she's. So this is what the Maharal says. The Maharal says that the eye shows you the well of your neshama. This is what it is. Ein Mishpat is the well, or the Torah tells us that this is a place which is called Kodesh, and over here there will be a judgment about a well. Which judgment of which well?
Stone.
Exactly.
That hits.
Absolutely. So this is that's the judgment.
Wow,
Because
Well, she makes the wrong judgment.
It doesn't make the wrong judgment, but
Well,
the
he
Baruch Hu
thinks it's
judges Moshe because
response.
of what happened at the well. Moshe Rabbeinu could have done a Kiddush Hashem, and then the judgment would have been that he goes into Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu decided to hit the rock, so he did not go into Eretz
Right
Yisrael.
or the wrong one.
Exactly. Well, whatever doesn't matter. But he didn't follow HaKadosh Baruch Hu's instruction. He didn't talk. He rather hit. So what do we see from this? We see first of all we see an amazing connection between
all of the complaining.
No. He wasn't forced to hit
No,
it.
He lost his school.
He didn't lose nothing. You will come on Shabbos afternoon, then you will get all the connection of it. It's really worthwhile coming because it's an amazing insight which you will get now.
Can you go far?
Related afterwards. So anyway, the point is that we see an amazing connection from the very beginning of the Torah, Parshas Lech Lecha, the third parsha in the Torah. This is where it all starts. It all starts there. Moshe Rabbeinu carries it on the 10th of Nisan, and it goes all the way through until the 10th of Teves, and we have it on the 9th of Tamuz as well. And then eventually we've got it on the 9th of Av. So we are carrying this specific energy through all these lines of the year, and this is where it results in a tragedy, so to say, which is the Churban of the Beis HaMikdash. But the good news is that is, well, obviously we had the second one, but the second one was also destroyed on the 9th of Av. But the good news is that there's an amazing story which is brought down in Psikta. Psikta is something similar like as the Gemara. It's not recorded. Not every Psikta is recorded in Talmud, but there's a specific book which is called Psikta, which was also written in the same kind of time period.
As what?
It's called Psikta.
What does that mean?
Psikta means determined halachas. This is what it means. But sometimes you've got stories in there as well, and there's an amazing story about, and this is a true story. The Gemara the Psikta tells us. So it's not a moshel, it's not a parable, but it's a real story. The story goes like this: there was a Jew which had a cow, and he used this cow for milk and probably for milk and for having other cows, right? This Jew had a very good life. He was living a normal life. He was a from Jew. Everything was good with him. At one point, he came off the derech a little bit, and he started at the same time, parallel to it. Psikta tells us that he also started to lose his wealth as well. And eventually he became so poor that he had to sell that cow. So he sold the cow to a non-Jew. And that non-Jew took that cow and he didn't use it for milking. He started to use it in the field for charisha. How do you say charisha?
Grazing?
Not grazing, when you...
Plowing.
Plowing, yeah. He wanted to use it for plowing. That's what Psikta tells us. A kasher from
You know when they carry on.
Okay,
Yeah,
so...
but normally use an ox.
Yeah, I know, it's true, but this is what it says there.
All right.
So 6 days, the first 6 days, Sunday till Friday, this cow was doing her job perfectly. On Shabbos morning, when you... Do you remember the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, on Shabbos
I don't
morning,
remember.
on Shabbos morning, this cow didn't want to do any work.
Oh.
And this guy, this non-Jew, he was very upset. And on Motzei Shabbos, he went back to the Jew and he said, "I'm sorry, I'm not buying this. I want my money back. This cow doesn't work, only 6 days a week." So the Jew understood what happened here. So he went to the cow and he whispered into the ear of the cow and said, "Listen, as long as you were with me, you were not allowed to work on Shabbos, so it's okay. But now you belong to a goy, and therefore, please start doing what you have to do."
Is a pet not allowed to work?
And he said, no. And he said to the guy, "Give me a chance for another week, bless you, and have a look if on the next Shabbos it will not work. If it still makes trouble, then give it back. I'll give you back the money, and if not, everything will be good." And this guy waits another week, and he sees that the cow works on Shabbos now. So he thinks to himself, how is that possible? That cow doesn't understand what anybody talks to him.
No.
And this cow has got no wisdom and no understanding. So how could it be that Jew spoke into the ear of that cow and the cow knew what's going on here? And this didn't let him go, this idea. So eventually he said to himself, it must be that a cow is just following the laws which HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it to follow. Not that the cow is learning. That's what the non-Jew thought to himself. And he made a kal vachomer. And he said to himself, if the cow, which has got no wisdom and no understanding, can follow the laws of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so if me, even that I'm a guy, but I am created, the Bible tells me that all the human beings are at Tzelem Elokim. So I am surely have to start. And he decided to become a convert, and he started learning Torah, and he became one of the Amoraim, one of the Tainoim, which are recorded in the Gemara, and he is called Yochanan Bar Toiso. Yochanan Bar Toiso. That's how the Gemara quotes him. So do you know the story? Okay. He was called Yochanan Bar Tota. So the question is this. The guy which converted to Judaism. He became a Yid. Der Scheigetse geworden, ein richtiger Yid. Und hat geheißen Yochanan Bar Tota. Du wusste der Pshat. Wie hat geheißen Yochanan Bar Tota? A non-Jew. You have to work in Stanford a little bit to understand what a Scheigets is.
Scheigets.
A Scheigets.
I think we're
Scheigets and a
Scheigets for a girl and a Scheigets for a man.
I know
Exactly.
There you go.
So we can't say
I only have the shiksa.
I have to start speaking Yiddish. So basically the question is, what has got. So one of the lessons which we definitely learn from that story is that if we do the proper thing, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is connected to everything. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is connected to a stone as well. If we follow exact instructions, then the stone will do what the stone has to do. Even if the stone has got no wisdom, and even if the stone has got no das and no knowledge, that the stone definitely didn't go to yeshiva and not to school to learn how to do it, but the stone is doing what Hashem is telling it to do. This is how it works. And the cow is doing what Hashem is telling it to do. Yeah, so this
Like breast livers when they go out to the field and they talk to the field.
Yes.
Oh
exactly.
yeah, my brother-in-law does that.
Or you can talk. My mother-in-law always used to say, when you talk nicely to the flowers, then they don't go off so quickly. You know?
Really?
Yes.
True,
Because they take in
I
the,
have flowers
carbon
to stay for a
dioxide.
really long time.
Oh, they could be.
No, my
Yes.
grandma probably does.
There you go.
It's true.
So the point is, we have to understand one thing. That this is a message which definitely comes through that story, but there's much more to this. Because if you're taking the name Yochanan Bar Toiso, he can't be the son of Torso. Yeah, Yochanan, the son of Torso. Now his father was definitely a non-Jew, so he can't have a Jewish name, the son of a Jewish name.
Yeah.
So why is he called that way? So in here, there's an interesting insight. And for that, I have to get up again. Okay. So this I can take away?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Sit down.
How do you spell Yochanan Bar Toiso?
Yes. Press.
Yud.
Both press.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So Yod.
when he leaves.
Vav. Ches. And Nun.
None.
Yod Ches.
Okay. Then.
Two nuns, no?
No. Yochanan.
No.
None.
Yes, two nuns. You're right.
Yochanan. Yochanan.
Yes. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Then we've got Baal, which means the sun. And Tor.
Say bar mitzvah.
Tor.
Son of celebration.
Doesn't have to marry.
So, yes. Okay. Now look at this.
Trust me, we're all looking.
I'll start. Hey.
Trust me, we're all looking.
Okay, you are looking. That's good. Okay, so basically, how it works is this: the Yud is the smallest letter in the alphabet. Do we all agree?
Yeah.
There's nothing smaller than the Yud. So kabbalistically, it's very well known that the Yud represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
But he's
Yes,
not
because
small.
why?
He's not small.
He's not small. He's very, very big. But he's the absolute unification of something to bring it into the minimum of minimum is with the Yud, and this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu hasn't got any partners. He's doing the whole work himself. He doesn't need anybody to assist him with this. Okay. From here can come out all the energy. How does this energy come out?
Small packages.
How? That's also true. How does that energy come through? There is a flow of energy. There's a pipeline. Okay, there's a pipeline, the Vov. That energy which comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu flows into the person which realizes that everything which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives him is a free present, a free gift. Nobody, we have got no claims for nothing. We can't go to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, Magia li, I deserve it. You have to give it to me. Nobody deserves nothing. Yochanan Bar Toiso, when he saw what his cow is doing, he realized that that's the only way forward. I have to become Jewish, and I have to do what? I have to learn Torah. Yeah, I have to learn Torah. And how do you learn Torah?
Something with a tough.
Yes, and you must know it because you heard it so often. What is the gematria of Tov?
400.
400.
Was it tough?
400.
Was it tough?
And there's a meaning behind the number.
There is a money. So this 400, there's two meanings behind it. First of all, the 400, if we take away the zeros, then, then we've got the 4. And 4 is the concept of transmitting Torah is always in force. Yeah? Because Baruch Hu gives it to Moshe.
Yeah.
Moshe transmits it to Aaron.
Yeah.
Aaron transmits it to the two sons. And the two sons transmit it to the rest of the Jewish people.
How's that cool?
Because it's from Kodesh Baruch Hu to Moshe. From Kodesh Baruch Hu to Moshe. From Moshe to Aaron. From Aaron to the to his two sons. Right? And from the two sons to the other Jews. So the transmitting of Torah is always in force. And the Maharsha, one of the commentators of Talmud, brings a proof that even Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was up on the mountain, he also learned it 4 times from Kodesh Baruch Hu. And it goes so far that's how we get back to the 400. The Gemara in Eruvin tells us a story of another Amoira, which was called Rav Preda. Rav Preda had a pupil, which he learned with him Gemara, whatever he learned with him, Gemara, whatever law he learned with him, for 400 times. And there was once a time when somebody came into the synagogue and he said to Rav Preda, we need you for a mitzvah matter. Maybe there was a funeral or something else. And that student heard that Rav Preda was called out, so he couldn't concentrate anymore. And Rav Preda was carrying on learning with him like any other day. And he sensed that his students didn't catch what he was teaching him. So he asked him, why didn't you catch it? What's going on with you today? Why are you not focused today? So he told him, since they called you for a mitzvah, I was worried that perhaps any minute you'll get up and go out. And that's why I couldn't focus anymore. So Rav Preda said, listen, relax, I'm not going out before you understand it. And he taught it to him another 400 times. When those 400 times were over, a baskoil, a heavenly voice came out and said, Rav Preda, you are being rewarded for this dedication. You'll get a reward. You can choose one of the two things: either that you will live for another 400 years, or that we promise you that all your generations, anybody which comes out of you, will go straight into Gan Eden after they pass. So Rav Preda said, I am choosing the second. I wanted all my generations. So Kodesh Baruch Hu came to the heavenly voice and said, because he chose so wisely, you give him both. And he lived for another 400 years.
Wow, all of that generation knew they could do whatever Avera they wanted.
Well, I'm not sure about that. They
wouldn't want
to do it away.
But they knew they were going in any case. So what's different?
No.
It's not the
so
point.
holy that they wouldn't want to, and that's what God's thinking.
They could do what they like, and they're still going.
No,
With
got
no
the wrong
point.
side of it.
No
The wrong
consequences.
side of it.
So
It doesn't mean that because you're doing this, your whole generation will go straight to Gan Eden because you're doing so wise. If anything, the whole generation will be so wise and such strong leaders.
Yes, no way.
So we see it. We do see that 400 has got a micro and a macro sense. Yeah. So we learn 4 times. It's transmitted in 4 times. We are learning for 400 times, and this is something which Rabbi Yochanan ben Bar Toisa realized, and this is who we became. So it's quite amazing.
Ready, steady.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Wait, we're finished?
Yes.
I thought we've just started.
What is it? What are you unclear on?
Sorry.
No, I thought you were in the middle of explaining that.
I got the whole thing through. Hast du es ausgemacht?
So we try to start.
Yeah, definitely. Do what you can.